the very end of the day and into the early hours. But overnight, generally England and Wales, the rest of it staying dry with some clear spells, and with light winds we could see 1 or 2 mist and fog patches forming again, and temperatures overall remaining in double figures, a little higher than the night before. So a bright start across England and Wales, some mist and fog patches first thing, but a different picture across Scotland, a cloudy grey start here for many of us, some outbreaks of rain which could be heavy at times over the Highlands. Some early rain across Northern Ireland, but breaking up to allow some sunshine to come through, and a mixed picture across northern England too, and fairly hazy sunshine across the rest of England and Wales. But as the mist and fog lifts, the skies will become blue and there'll be plenty of sunshine for the day ahead. However, there is the risk later on in the morning into the afternoon of some heavy showers and thunderstorms starting to pull in from the southwest, but most places will stay dry. Rain becoming increasingly confined to northwest Scotland as we move through the day, so a bit of a grey day here. But in the sunshine, temperatures lifting the high 20s, possibly 30, 31 Celsius towards the southeast. Into the evening time, 1 or 2 thunderstorms are possible, but most places staying dry with sunny spells, though the sunshine quite hazy across England and Wales. The rain still lingering across parts of the Highlands. And the next few days remains hot and sunny for many of us. Light winds, temperatures reaching the low, possibly mid-30s. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, and you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. US Vice President JD Vance says that the US is in the process of scheduling when Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky can meet to discuss the war between their two countries. JD Vance went on to say during an interview with Fox News that he didn't think it would be productive for the two leaders to sit down before the scheduled summit between the US and Russia in Alaska next Friday. It follows reports from the White House last night that President Zelensky could be invited to those talks with President Trump and Vladimir Putin next week. Ukraine's allies held a security meeting hosted by Foreign Secretary David Lammy yesterday. They're calling for Zelensky's involvement in the peace talks, saying the path to peace cannot be decided without Kyiv. Hundreds of people, including family members of Israeli hostages taken on October the 7th, have marched to Downing Street urging the release of those being held by Hamas. The Metropolitan Police said a man who was not part of the march was arrested for common assault and a racially aggravated public order offence after the march briefly paused just past Charing Cross. The organisation Stop the Hate said that protesters will urge the Prime Minister to prioritise the release of the 50 remaining Israeli hostages, with 20 of them thought to be alive, before any recognition of a Palestinian state. The Israeli Prime Minister has said that his Gaza expansion plan is the best way to end the war and that Israel has no choice but to complete the job and defeat Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel's goal is to free Gaza in a press conference this afternoon, where he outlined what he called 2 Hamas strongholds in the strip that he intends to dismantle. Denmark, France, Greece, Slovenia and the United Kingdom called for urgent action and a surge of aid to Gaza in a joint statement today. The UN Security Council has held a meeting this afternoon to discuss the situation in Gaza. And Crystal Palace have won the Community Shield, beating Liverpool 3-2 on penalties after a 2-2 draw at Wembley. The Eagles have added more silverware to their collection, having secured their first major trophy with FA Cup glory in May. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for the Camilla Tominey Show with Christopher Hope, recorded earlier today.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show with me, Christopher Hope. Now, joining me here in GB News' Westminster studio is Rosie Wrighting MP, the Labour MP for Kettering. Rosie Wrighting, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Government plans today to allow our government, to deport foreign national prisoners. How many will be deported in the first year?
This is about Labour taking action on deporting foreign criminals. Already, we've seen an uplift. So in the past year, we've deported 5,400. That's 14% more than that same time in the previous year. But what this means is that we can go firmer and faster and deport these foreign criminals straight after they've been sentenced. We can't put an exact number. I know people...
So all I want to hear is how many, Rosie?
Well, over the past few years, people have heard so many numbers from the previous Conservative government that haven't ended up happening. I think they've stopped believing numbers, but what they want to see is action. And this change in law is how they're going to get that action and see foreign criminals deported to free up prison space and save taxpayers' money.
10,400 foreign national prisoners in jails. That's 12% of the population. They cost £54,000 each. That's millions of pounds of our taxpayers' money being spent on housing these people here. Will they all be sent home, and when will that happen by?
Well, it's a process needs to be played out. Obviously, this has just been announced today, but what is really important is that they will have the chance, they will be deported straight after being sentenced. We inherited a system where they would have to serve 50% of their sentence. In June, we changed that to 30%, and now this is straight after sentencing, which really increases the numbers of people we can deport. But the Tories, I mean, they had these prison transfer agreements, but really the numbers were nothing like what they sort of played out they would be in the media. I think in their last year they deported 33, which is not the numbers that people want to see. But this change in law is how we get that action.
And this is a big issue under the last Labour government in the noughties under Labour. It's never gone away, the issue of foreign national prisoners. One concern might be that when they do go home to wherever they've come from, they then can be free to wander around and be free at liberty, to just be free in their home country rather than jailed. What do you say to victims seeing that?
I think that victims should always have justice for the crime that has taken place. And I don't know the details of the communication with the country they'll be returning to, but if someone has been sentenced because they've committed a crime, it is right, absolutely right, that they serve that sentence. And if they're a foreign national, that they're not taking up our taxpayers' money and vital space in our prisons.
They could be freed and go home, be free to wander around at home. And how is that justice for victims?
Well, you know, other countries have their own judicial process, and it is right that the people who have committed a crime should be serving that sentence.
But if they're not, if they're going home to be freed at home, maybe it's better if they're here, serving their time here for crimes committed in this country.
Well, they should be serving their sentence.
But they may not be under this policy.
Well, that's down to the country that they come from, but there are strict judicial processes in other countries.
If they're sent home and not imprisoned at home, they shouldn't be sent back.
Well, they should be serving their sentence in their home country.
What about human rights, though? There could be concerns about that. There might be human rights challenges to being sent away from this country.
Yeah, and that is a challenge. But also, if you have committed a crime, it is right that you face the full force of the law, and if that's in the country that you're from, that you know that that's a possibility, that you'll be facing that. But also, I know you spoke about this has been an issue for a long time, and it has, but the amount of space in prison is a current issue, and we saw that when we were elected last year. I mean, I think personally, it's part of the reason that the Tories called the elections when they did, is because they knew how full our prisons were going to be. It's just not right that prison spaces are taken up with people who could be serving time in their own country.
The government, though, looks like it will be recognising Palestine as a state next month, subject to conditions. You're content with that? You think that's the right choice to make? I
believe that that's the right thing to do. It was a commitment that we stood on during the election. It was in our manifesto. And now is the time to do that and to look. It feels very far away at the moment, that two-state solution. I know so many of us want to get to, but it is right for the Palestinian people that now is the time for the UK to recognise Palestine if those conditions are not met. Despite
America's concern, despite Israel's concern?
Well, I think with America, when it comes to the humanitarian crisis and getting aid into Gaza, we have the same objectives. And actually, JD Vance, I know he spoke about this with David Lammy in his visit. We might have different ways of getting to that objectives, but we do have that shared goals to see peace in the region and a two-state solution.
Big concern for GB News viewers and listeners is migrant hotels. Do you have many in Kettering?
No, under the previous government there was 2, I believe, but now there isn't. And I know I speak to residents, and I wasn't an MP, but I was living in the area myself at the time, that the migrant hotels cause distress for the community, but also for the refugees themselves.
You understand concerns about it?
Yeah, of course.
From people? Yeah.
Yes, I understand the concerns about the hotels, not only because they cost the taxpayer a massive amount of money. There is no chance for integration. It's difficult for the communities as well. I understand from the refugee side, from the residents themselves, that there's concern, of course.
Yeah. Big issues this autumn, looking into the possible tax-raising budget. We'll wait and see how the government deals with the issues with their finances. In the Sunday Times talks about Rachel Reeves looking for more of a Labour narrative this autumn. What do you want to see from this government on tax and spend?
I think from the beginning we've seen a government that's deep-rooted in the budgets that are deep-rooted in Labour values. That's why we made the decisions we made in the budget last year, so that, you know, the bigger businesses would hold the biggest burden.
But more tax rises, is that what we want?
Well, like I said previously, we have to put finances back to a sustainable footing. But I believe that Rachel Reeves makes decisions deep-rooted in Labour values. But I'm not in the Treasury, so I don't know. I can't say what those decisions are going to be. I will be watching the budget like everyone else. But yeah, I know that they'll be deep-rooted in Labour values.
Rosie Wrighting, MP for Kettering, thanks for joining us today live in the studio. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining me is the Tory MP for North Cotswolds, Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown. Sir Geoffrey, thank you for joining us today on the Camilla Tominey show. It's great to see you. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
No, great to be with you.
Politics never stops at GB News, certainly. It's a big week this week with President Zelensky and Ukraine. Should he be invited, Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, to those talks between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin on Friday?
Well, I think it's very hard to see how you could eventually come up with any peace deal if President Zelensky wasn't part of it. So, I mean, I think the ideal is certainly that he should be there. But if he isn't there on this occasion, he will certainly need to be there on subsequent occasions, I think.
And any deal, what will it look like? The Sunday Times reporting today that there must be a cast-iron guarantee for Ukraine. Will there be a territory swap? Will we have to offer, and should we offer, NATO membership to Ukraine?
Well, I think some territory swap is inevitable, given that Russia now holds quite a bit of Ukraine. Inevitably, at least on some form of informal basis, Russia is likely to want to occupy that bit that it holds. The idea of NATO membership, I would have thought, would be a complete anathema to President Putin. So I doubt that'll be part of the deal. In fact, I would think totally the opposite. Whatever the peace deal is, there will be peacekeepers in what remains of Ukraine, and I suspect the deal will be that they will not be allowed to join NATO.
We're looking to a busy September. We're going to see probably Palestine recognised as a state for the first time by the UK. That's likely to happen at the UN General Assembly meeting in the third week of September. What's your take on that, Geoffrey Clifton-Brown? Do you approve?
Well, I think let's just qualify that statement, Chris, if I may, because I think whilst ourselves and France and Germany and other nations may well recognise Palestine, clearly the Americans won't. And they are one of the 5 Security Council members, and they would probably veto any formal recognition of Palestine as a state. So we'll have a situation where Palestine is recognised informally by ourselves and some other countries, but not formally by the United Nations as an independent country. So this will be quite difficult, I think.
Will it change much? Will it open access to aid maybe for Palestine or Gaza as it is currently? It will, I suppose, establish a diplomatic network for the nascent state of Palestine?
Well, I hope that is the answer, Chris. I hope it will establish a diplomatic network, and I hope it will mean that the international community will be able to get the amount of aid that's really desperately needed into that Gazan state at the moment.
Are you comfortable with Israel's plans to run Gaza? They want to rid Gaza of Hamas, don't they? And then take over the running in some way of what will be a country. Is that a good thing? Do you think it will just inflame tension?
Well, I think what Benjamin Netanyahu's intentions was to take over the whole of Palestine. Now, I wasn't quite clear whether that means driving everybody out of Palestine, but whatever, he will take over the governments. And I think that is deeply unsatisfactory, because once he's taken it over, what's to actually make him give it back again to any form of Palestine government? So I think this move should be strongly opposed. And I think the way I was a former Conservative Friends of Israel, but I think the way the Israelis have treated the population in Gaza is completely unacceptable. Starving them of aid, of medical supplies, of water, of food is completely unacceptable. And I think the international community has got to find a way of dealing with that.
Just looking ahead into our budget, we haven't got a date yet for the budget. It's probably going to be late October, very early in November. Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, are you concerned about wealth taxes? Because that's been mooted, or how will you be filling what could be seen as quite a large fiscal black hole?
Well, I think that many people in this country don't realise what a parlous economic state we're in. We're borrowing a record amount, about 100% of GDP. The interest on that alone is over £100 billion. That's sunk money each year to service that loan. And I think there will come a point where the international community will actually start to restrict the amount we can borrow. The country is not growing, the economy is not growing, and we're at a record high of taxation since the war already. Frankly, what's happening with our economy under this government at the moment is we're spending more than we can afford. But I don't see this
We've been doing that since you were there for 14 years, and we did it under your government, didn't we, Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown? I mean, you spent £500 billion on the COVID pandemic and the energy shock from the Ukraine war. Surely that's got to be paid for.
Well, of course it's got to be paid for, but it's got substantially worse in the last year, and there are no mechanisms, as I can see, to actually start to reverse this situation. So inevitably, taxes are going to go up considerably in the budget. But I don't think that either a wealth tax or even tinkering with capital gains tax is going to raise the amount of money that is required. So I think inevitably the Chancellor is going to have to start to raise one or two of the basic taxes that she has promised not to. So I think we are in an absolutely dire situation, and we're not actually doing anything to repair it, because what is happening at the moment is the public sector is at a record high for the size of it, and the private sector, businesses are going out of businesses all the time, unemployment is going up. So the situation is actually getting worse, not better, under this government.
I mean, the government says it wants to cut the civil service by 10% in that spring statement, and we hear today that Steve Reed has done that in DEFRA, so surely you give them that credit. They are trying to cut the size of the civil service, but it is bloated, it's too big, and we haven't yet seen if they could even cut the benefits bill by £5 billion. That was failed, wasn't it, just in the summer just gone?
So two things there, Chris. Firstly, that I don't see much signs of the civil service being cut, and I interview twice a week. My committee on a twice-weekly basis interviews the most senior people in the civil service, and I don't see much signs of it being cut. No. Second thing is that I don't see any measures to actually cut the budget at the moment, cut the amount of spending, or even try and root out waste. And we on the Public Accounts Committee, could save them billions of pounds if we were asked how you would do it.
Yes. Just turning to Tory party politics, you're the treasurer of the 1922 committee of Tory MPs. How's Kemi Badenoch doing?
Well, I think we've now got a conference coming up in October, and I think that's her real chance to start to show peace what she's really all about, put what the Conservative Party stands for, and actually publicise. And I got a list the other day. The number of policies we've already come up with is quite considerable, but actually nobody knows about it. So the party conference is a time when she can really set out her stall and show what the Conservative Party really stands for.
But you said that no one knows about it because she's been in power for basically 9 or 10 months. Isn't that a complete failure as leader of the opposition?
Well, inevitably, after the catastrophic defeat that we had in last July's general election, it was going to be a really tough job for the first year or two. So her job is to gradually not only come up with some policies, but actually start to get on the media. And she does that where she can. But of course, at the moment, other things are happening, and she just isn't getting the air coverage that she really...
The other thing's happening is Reform UK is happening. It's miles ahead in the polls. Is she got the right stuff to beat or to defeat Nigel Farage?
Well, I think she needs to be more outspoken, really bang the drum as to what we actually do stand for. And after all, we've got 120 members of Parliament. Reform have got, 4 or something? We really ought to be able to start, with all those spokesmen coming on the radio and social media all the time, we really ought to be able to start to actually get it across to the public what we do actually stand for and what we're doing about the problems, the very, very serious problems that this country faces.
Letters of no confidence can go into her leadership from November after that first year's grace ends. Do you expect letters to be sent in expressing concern and wanting a change of leader?
Well, my job as part of the officers of the 22 is to monitor this sort of situation. I've no idea because the chairman, as you know, never reveals whether he's received letters or not. And of course, he can't, as you say, until a year is up. So, I mean, that would be pure speculation. But I didn't get the impression before the parliamentary break that there was a level of dissatisfaction that would warrant letters going in. I think we've really got to wait and see. Give her a little bit more space. Give her a little bit of airtime over the party conference and see how that all shakes out.
Well, Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, an easy one finally. Will she be your leader at the next election?
Well, I think she's got a lot of what it takes. She's brave, she's bright, she's gutsy. She just needs to actually start to bang the drum a little bit more and actually show what the Conservative Party really stands for. And she's got some good people in her shadow cabinet. Get them out and about in the country a bit more and really start banging that drum and start having some policies to oppose what this government is getting wrong in the economy, on immigration, on health. I mean, there's a lot of things going wrong in this country, sadly, at the moment.
Yeah. You're not saying yes or no, are you, to that question? Will she be your leader?
I've no idea, Chris. I think it depends on how she performs over the next few months. Every month that goes on, she should be getting better. We'll see after the party conference. Have me on after the party conference, and then we'll see.
So Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, it's an open invitation for you on this show, and of course you're not a front bencher, you're doing it on your Sunday. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office, and a bit of a north-south split over the next 12 or so hours. Outbreaks of rain pushing across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but high pressure dominating across much of England and Wales. You can see those weather fronts moving in as we go through the next few hours, introducing outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland, pushing its way eastwards. Rain will be hit and miss. There'll be light and patchy in places, but there is the risk of a few heavier bursts. Generally elsewhere, it's largely dry with clear spells and mist and fog patches forming. The cloud and rain just starting to edge into northern parts of England by the end of the night. So a north-south split to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine across central and southern parts of England and Wales, but a different picture across the northern half of the UK. Fairly cloudy across Scotland, outbreaks of rain. Though there could be a few glimmers of brightness here and there, and after a damp start for Northern Ireland, the sun should start to appear here too, and a mixed picture across northern England. A few mist and fog patches first thing across the rest of England and Wales, but they will soon clear, and then there'll be plenty of hazy sunshine as we go through the day. There is the risk of one or two heavy showers or thunderstorms starting to move up from the southwest as we move through the day, but most places will stay dry, and the rain across the north will become more confined to northern Scotland as we move into the afternoon. And feeling quite hot, particularly in the sunshine, temperatures reaching around 31 Celsius for many, the mid to high 20s. And then into Tuesday again, a lovely day to come, plenty of hazy sunshine. The risk of one or two thunderstorms in places in the heat of the day, but many places dry with sunny spells, and temperatures lifting further, reaching around 32 or 33 Celsius. Probably the peak in the heat, but staying very warm through the rest of the week. Temperatures well above average. See you soon.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show. Joining me now in the studio here is a former senior NATO official, senior member of the European Leadership Network, Nicholas Williams. Nicholas Williams, thank you for joining us. A very big week in international politics. The first time that Vladimir Putin has set foot in America on a US soil by visiting Donald Trump on Friday in Alaska. What can we hope from it?
Well, it's a big event, obviously. It's doubtful whether it will live up to expectations, but the key point is that there is a dialogue between the United States and Putin, and seems to be excluding Ukraine and the Europeans.
Yeah, so wait and see how that plays out. I mean, there are calls today from Europe to allow Ukraine into these talks because, of course, it is part of the conversation, and it's concerning that it's not there. Do you fear, though, that this is rewarding Putin by giving that access to Donald Trump on US soil? He should be a pariah. He's now being welcomed, isn't he, into America by Donald Trump?
Yes, and that's the European perspective, but from Trump's perspective, it's all about doing a deal, making peace insofar as he can make peace, and he thinks there's some movement on the Russian side, and I think it's a clever ploy by Putin and don't...
What's clever, to go to Alaska for it, or to be in Reykjavik or somewhere else?
To go to Alaska, yes, that's probably Trump's suggestion. But to suggest that the Ukrainians withdraw from the Donbass, which is a key issue which the Europeans and the Ukrainians resisted at all costs.
That brings us on to the shape of any deal here. Surely it's going to be a territory swap, but can you have like-for-like in territory? As you say there, the Donbass, but other areas which Ukraine want Russia to also withdraw from?
Well, as I said, there are great expectations, but they won't be fulfilled. And I suspect that this is a process, not an event. And the process will be, okay, Ukraine is excluded, but the Americans and the Russians will come up with a proposal for a ceasefire, which involves the withdrawal from Donbass by Ukraine. And then there'll be a second phase, which will be fill in the details. But the trap for Ukrainians and the Europeans is, of course, that they cannot accept this proposal for the ceasefire. And then Trump is faced with the choice to walk away or to double down in support of either Russia or Ukraine.
Are the talks surprising? Because I've been with Donald Trump a fair bit in February and also most recently in Turnberry, and he always talks about the fact, or most recently talks about the fact, that he talked to Vladimir Putin about peace, and then straight after those talks have happened, Putin's raining down missiles on Kyiv. I mean, he feels he's not playing fair there.
Well, Putin has always been adamant in his objectives. He's been adamant that the conditions for a ceasefire don't exist.
Yeah.
But now, what persuaded Witkoff and Trump is that they say that the conditions for a ceasefire do exist, provided that the Ukrainians withdraw from Donbass.
Yes, well, let's see how that plays out. On the front page today, Sunday Times, there's talk here of the UK saying that Kyiv must be given ironclad guarantees, including potential NATO membership. You've been involved in and around NATO for 3 or 4 decades now. Is that likely?
It's not likely in terms of NATO guarantees. This is one of Putin's red lines, and this process is a process of Americans gradually conceding Putin's red lines. But security guarantees from a consortium of European powers may be possible. But again, it's Putin, in Trump terms, who holds all the cards.
Who's winning?
Well, on the ground, it's the Russians who are winning, and that's why the pressure is on the Europeans and Zelensky, and not on Putin.
And longer term, there's talk since the Lancaster House deal back in January. There was talk then of European troops on the ground, a coalition of the willing. That's all died away now. Why is that?
Well, I think the proposals and the ideas are dormant. As I say, this is a process, and possibly the next phase of talks, if there is a next phase, will deal with the details. And the Europeans will resurrect their ideas in that stage. But I fear that Putin has maneuvered Trump into a position and the Europeans into a position that the Ukrainians will refuse that peace deal.
And just finally, Nicholas Williams, on Gaza, Palestine will probably be recognised by France and the UK next month at the UN General Assembly meeting. What will America do? I mean, is it even... They'll veto anything, won't they, at the Security Council, so it won't have any actual legal force internationally in the UN.
It doesn't have any legal force. As the instigator of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, it has a profound symbolic force.
And that's about it.
That's about it.
Well, Nicholas Williams, thank you for joining us. Of course, you're Senior Fellow at the European Leadership Network and a former NATO chief, been in and around NATO for 4 decades. Thanks for coming into the channel today. Thank you for coming in, sir.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. The European heatwave will continue over the next few days, so some very high temperatures for many places. Lots of blue skies and sunshine, though, including the Canary Islands and Madeira, but the heat is most intense across Iberia, so Portugal and inland parts of Spain seeing temperatures into the low to mid-40s Celsius. Hot also across Italy, the Balkans, Greece and Turkey. And it's going to stay hot over the next few days as well. Lots and lots of sunshine, temperatures in the high 30s or low 40s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Now, joining me to discuss taxation, tax and spend, and how on earth we fill these fiscal black holes which keep cropping up is Julian Jessop, the economist. Julian, welcome to the Camilla Tominey show. What will the Chancellor do in the budget? We're expecting that, of course, in October or November.
Well, I think every economist would agree that there is another black hole in the public finances that needs to be filled. So last week, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research suggested that might be as much as 50 billion. I think that's probably an overestimate. They were making some very pessimistic assumptions about growth in particular. But I think we're probably looking at at least 20 billion of tax increases. As far as possible, she'll try and raise that from taxes on capital and also from sin taxes. So that's increases in taxes on things like gambling in particular and possibly road fuel duty as well. But I don't think this is going to work. The basic problem in the UK economy is a lack of confidence amongst businesses, consumers, and investors. Why would you bother to spend or hire or invest in this country if you're worried about taxes going up even further? So I think the focus is wrong, but what she'll try and do is to close that gap by raising taxes even further.
In today's Sunday Times, there's a big piece about Labour's how it can ever escape what they call the doom loop. Apparently, those who are close to Rachel Reeves are saying she'll create a more Labour narrative for measures in the autumn budget this year. Is that more taxes?
Well, I think by Labour narrative, she means maybe shifting the emphasis a bit from just headline economic growth, which nobody really understands anyway, towards raising living standards. Okay. The sort of thing that she'll be talking about there is the increases in, for example, the national minimum wage, which has been quite good for some people on low incomes. But the problem with that, of course, is that higher national minimum wage is ultimately paid for by companies. So that's contributed to higher business costs, which is one of the reasons why inflation is likely to rise from 3.6% now to maybe 4% in the autumn. Yeah. So what we're heading for is this nasty, toxic combination of what's sometimes called stagflation. So that stagnant economic growth, rising inflation, and also increasing job losses. Now, I don't think that'll be any near as bad as the stagflation we saw in the 1970s. But crucially, this isn't going to be good for the public finances. So unless the government really addresses the growth and productivity problems in the economy, as you say, we're just in a doom loop and things are just going to get worse.
And that means getting more people off benefits and into work. You mentioned earlier taxes on capital. That means wealth taxes, doesn't it? Now, we heard from Jonathan Reynolds. He's told GBNews earlier this month how he thought it'd be crazy to bring in wealth taxes. Do you think that those are still alive, or have they been put down now?
Well, I think that the government has clearly ruled out what you might call a one-off or permanent 1 or 2% tax on wealth. I think the reason they've done that is a very good one, is that we know those don't work. So, pretty much every other country that's raised wealth taxes over the last decade or so has regretted it. They simply, damage confidence in the economy. They drive people overseas, or they mean that people who have choices decide not to work or not to invest or not to set up a business. So that form of wealth tax, I think, has been ruled out. But there are lots of other things that the government could do in order to raise more money from capital. And I think some of that might be sensible. I think most economists would agree that taxation of income should be the same, whether that income is from labour or from capital. But because the government is scrambling around to find an extra billion here or extra billion there, I'm pretty confident it won't do so in the most sensible way. It will end up damaging incentives, undermining investment, and ultimately weakening growth.
How much is the issue we have now Labour's fault? I just only say to you that the last government spent £500 billion on the COVID pandemic and also dealing with the energy shock from the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Wasn't it always the case that we'd have to put up taxes to pay for that? Or is this Labour's fault? Or do you blame the current government?
No, I partly blame the current government, but also previous ones, because the Labour did inherit an economy that, frankly, was in a mess. So lots of structural problems, very high borrowing and debt was just one of them. But this government, if anything, has actually made things worse. If you look at the choices they've made on fiscal policy, rather than controlling spending, they've actually increased it further. So the miserable failures to control welfare spending in particular, but also pumping billions more into an NHS without reforming it, without doing a lot about productivity there. So the government has made it worse in some areas. There is a vital and urgent need for reform of the economy in all sorts of ways to boost productivity. But the things the government doing here either have stalled, so planning, for example, or they're heading in the wrong direction. So I think the employment rights bill is going to be a disaster, just saddling more costs on employers and make it even less attractive to hire people. So even if more people are looking for work, the chances are they won't be able to find it. So yes, the government did inherit a mess, but it's done very little to make it better.
It's trying to get the changes through the Lords. The planning bill is in the Lords at the moment. If it can get through that, then that might unleash more house building. The big political threat, both to Labour and the Tories, of course, is Nigel Farage. Have you looked at his plans yet? Some are saying that it's Trussonomics on steroids.
I have obviously looked at reforms policies. I think they've got a few interesting ideas. I think there's a lot to be said for raising the threshold at which people start paying income tax. I think that's a good reform. I also like a more technical proposal they've got, which is to reduce the amount of interest that the Bank of England pays to commercial banks on the reserves created to finance quantitative easing. Now, that might sound a bit technical, but that could actually save the government maybe tens of billions of pounds a year and reduce the need for tax increases. But overall, I think reforms policies are basically just whatever they think will win votes or will appeal to particular donors. I don't think they have got a coherent strategy. And some parts of it, I think, will simply involve spending a lot more money for no obvious benefit.
There's been a bit of a debate about Liz Truss's role, and I say Trussonomics because that's a shorthand for saying, electric shock treatment for the economy that didn't go down so well because of other issues in the market at the same time, according to Liz Truss's version of events. Do you think we're starting to reappraise her, and maybe she was onto something? It was that unfair.
Well, I always thought she was onto something. I was one of the people giving her advice before she became Prime Minister, and there's a lot of the things that she was planning to do I approve of. She did make some big mistakes, though, in particular announcing larger than expected tax cuts without any accompanying forecast from the independent fiscal watchdog or any immediate plans to cut spending. But I think history has been hard on her. I think she was unlucky, in particular, because of two things, as you say, that were happening in the markets. One is there was a ticking time bomb in the pensions industry that the Bank of England should have been on top of. And the other was that the Bank of England was just launching the reversal of quantitative easing. So it's starting to sell government bonds into the market, which is adding to the upward pressure on interest rates. So yes, Liz Truss made some mistakes, but it's worth remembering that her growth budget, as it was called, was initially well received, including by businesses. It was perceived as positive for growth, rather than what the new Chancellor has done, Rachel Reeves. Well, I think most people agree that she's actually holding growth back for one reason or another.
I suppose that the concern then, Julian Jessop, as a former advisor to Liz Truss, is that we shouldn't allow us to ignore any of the things she did. She was trying to do the best by this country by growing it, but it was probably too much too quickly.
I think that's exactly right. And I think dismissing everything she was trying to do because she made some big mistakes in some areas is definitely the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, Julian Jessop, thank you for joining us today on the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. We really appreciate it. Now, still to come, the Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, welcome to studio, of course. 26,000 people arriving here illegally by small boat. What's your forecast for this calendar year?
I think we're now at the point that this is far exceeding even the worst years that we saw in 22 and 23. We're about 40% up when it comes to channel crossings on last year. We are probably going to see 50,000 people come across the English Channel.
Wow.
And then you look at what the government are actually trying to introduce in terms of a scheme with France, one in, one out, that probably by the end of this year will, in the best case scenario, see 800 people returned to France. You realise that actually their plan would see 2% of those that are probably going to come across this year removed, and you realise just the scale of this problem and the meagre offerings that the Labour government are putting forward to try and address it.
One in, one out policy. I was there at the summit when it was announced in Northwood by the Prime Minister and the French President Emmanuel Macron. That, of course, is a trial. It could be expanded. I mean, it could be more than 700, but it's a very small number at the moment. And it is time limited. It runs out in June next year. But again, it could be expanded. So we're at the very early stages of what could be a successful policy.
Well, it could be successful in that the hope is that it would eventually stop the small boats. But we need to ask ourselves whether actually having a scheme where we end up with the same number of asylum seekers, they're just at different stages of being processed through the system, is something that the British public would actually tolerate at this point. We've seen an asylum system that has exploded in terms of the cost and in terms of the social unease it's created as a result. Since 2019, the budget has gone up nearly tenfold. So we need to realise that actually the British public are more concerned about the cost of this. And if we're bringing in individuals who've had their asylum claims processed and accepted, these are then individuals who are now our responsibility to look after and, when needed, to provide welfare and housing and things like that, without any spectre of them being removed from the country. So this actually could cause us to incur longer-term costs that are perhaps hidden in the welfare bill and hidden beyond sort of the headline asylum budget exploding. But there is a very real risk that this could actually end up harming us economically more so than the current chaos that we've got.
Is one in, one out enough? We haven't got a deterrent yet, have we? There's talk about offshore processing in the Balkans was one idea talked about by Keir Starmer in Albania. That hasn't happened yet. We remember back, don't we, to a year ago, or just over a year ago now, the Rwanda plan, Tory plans to deport people to Rwanda. That seemed to be working anecdotally. There's reporting from newspapers in northern France saying that people weren't going to come across until Labour won power. In the island of Ireland, some people were going from North to Southern Ireland to avoid being sent to Rwanda. Was it a mistake to drop that on day 2 of this government?
So the virtue of the Rwanda scheme was that it recognised a fundamental part of how migration flows work, which is if you want individuals to not come into your country, you need to remove those pull factors. And the Rwanda scheme did identify that a strong deterrent is necessary if you want to deter people from actually coming to your country. Unfortunately, of course, as we all know very well versed at this point, they didn't take that final step and actually create the legal framework that would enable those deportations to happen on a grand enough scale to really send a message to the tens of thousands.
It was hobbled really by the ECHR, wasn't it?
Well, of course, and there was that moment when migrants were about to be put onto the plane, and there was the late night ECHR ruling, and you then see ministers having been twisted up by from that point on, and it was ultimately really the Tories' refusal to accept that ECHR membership was the problem that hobbled their plans. And the problem is, of course, from that, Labour have looked to go so far the other way and to talk about smashing the gangs rather than stopping the boats that we're now not even having a strong conversation about a deterrent. And we've ended up with a situation where we have up to 100,000 people now in HMOs and hotels across the country. This is clearly something that's getting out of hand, and there doesn't seem to be anything solid, strong around which a proper framework of deterrence can be built with this Labour Party.
We're seeing protests, of course, across the country outside migrant hotels. Increasingly, people are starting to say that these people arriving here, often it's young men, are committing crimes. Is that overblown? I mean, or is it right that we are talking about that? The police, of course, don't tell us, do they, according to guidance, about the nationality or the immigration status of criminals?
No, I think it's very, very warranted concerns, and you see cases being reported in the Sun and certain hotels in like Bournemouth where there are a large number of charges being brought against individuals being housed in those hotels. Of course, we also know that those individuals coming across on the boats are more likely to be coming from places such as Afghanistan and Eritrea, where the indicative data, Ministry of Justice data, does suggest that they are vastly disproportionately represented in convictions for sexual assault violence.
But you say they're Eritrea and Afghanistan. They are places which may be allowed to grant asylum to those areas.
Well, and this is part of the problem, whether we need to realise that actually the asylum system and where it is at is actually too embracing of individuals from certain countries that might not be coming with our set of values, and are actually probably, if they're coming from a war zone, are more likely to be disposed for socio-economic and cultural reasons to being engaging in these kind of crimes that people are rightly concerned about.
There's talk today from Robert Jenrick. He's the Shadow Justice Secretary. He's concerned about his daughters, and he's presenting a choice, I think, to government, which is quite interesting. He's saying to almost the government, who do you care more about, your children or migrants' human rights?
I think this is increasingly where the conversation is going. When you look at the statistics last year, when a quarter of sexual assaults and a quarter of rape convictions were of foreign nationals, there is a very strong need for us to have a conversation about to what extent our border policy in general is exposing us to risk. Arguably, any individual coming to this country should be not committing a single crime, and if they are doing, they should be deported. And of course, the Justice Secretary has set out some plans to go down that route and start looking to remove those that are clearly causing harm to society.
We need firmness from government to take on the vested interests which are stopping dealing with this problem. I mean, we're told the government, the Labour government, wants to deal with it. We get to see any fruit of that.
Well, exactly, and the Labour Party's plans here, you know, they can change the law as much as they like, but whether they have the operational capacity and the operational willingness to actually get tackling, get tough, and whether that does involve having a franker conversation with Herman and telling him that perhaps he needs to wind his neck in a bit when it comes to his obsession with human rights.
Lord Herman, the Attorney General. I mean, he's blamed by his critics for this. Is it fair to blame it on one man, or is it a problem in the whole country?
Well, to be honest, I think he's probably more indicative of a kind of malaise and a kind of an ideology that does permeate quite a few ministerial
So who's running the
departments.
country? Is it lawyers or politicians, perhaps?
Well, I think a lot of people would look at the rulings made by immigration tribunals and realise that actually the way they've been elevated to effectively dictate border policy, we can't remove individuals because their cousin doesn't, their nephew doesn't like a certain type of chicken.
It goes back to sovereignty, courts.
And this was because that, of course, Brexit wasn't actually properly completed by the Johnson government. They refused to actually address the ECHR issue when they were doing the withdrawal agreement.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office, and a bit of a north-south split over the next 12 or so hours. Outbreaks of rain pushing across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but high pressure dominating across much of England and Wales. You can see those weather fronts moving in as we go through the next few hours, introducing outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland, pushing its way eastwards. Rain will be hit and miss. There'll be light and patchy in places, but there is the risk of a few heavier bursts. Generally elsewhere, it's largely dry with clear spells and mist and fog patches forming. The cloud and rain just starting to edge into northern parts of England by the end of the night. So a north-south split to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine across central and southern parts of England and Wales, but a different picture across the northern half of the UK. Fairly cloudy across Scotland, outbreaks of rain, though there could be a few glimmers of brightness here and there, and after a damp start for Northern Ireland, the sun should start to appear here too, and a mixed picture across northern England. A few mist and fog patches first thing across the rest of England and Wales, but they will soon clear, and then there'll be plenty of hazy sunshine as we go through the day. There is the risk of one or two heavy showers or thunderstorms starting to move up from the southwest as we move through the day, but most places will stay dry, and the rain across the north will become more confined to northern Scotland as we move into the afternoon. And feeling quite hot, particularly in the sunshine, temperatures reaching around 31 Celsius for many, the mid to high 20s. And then into Tuesday again, a lovely day to come, plenty of hazy sunshine. The risk of one or two thunderstorms in places in the heat of the day, but many places dry with sunny spells, and temperatures lifting further, reaching around 32 or 33 Celsius. Probably the peak in the heat, but staying very warm through the rest of the week. Temperatures well above average. See you soon.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We want to send some of those monthly financial stresses packing this August with your chance to be mortgage or rent-free for 12 whole months. We'll give you a cash lump sum that equals 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to an amazing £20,000. We'll also throw in an extra £5,000 on top of that for good measure. For another chance